everybody! I am so excited that we are going to learn about a still life painting today. So the details of your project is that you have to pick something that has the elements and principles of art. So I decided to use color, balance, symmetry, uh, contrast, and value. And I'll go through that with you really quick. But basically, the most important thing is picking your subject. This is what I started with. So right here, we have I knew I wanted to do the teapot. You can see the teapot in the back. I wanted to do these teacups, but then I realized that I didn't want to paint something that was so detailed. So then I moved on to um, a teapot, plain colored teacups, and peaches. But I kind of didn't like the shortness of the teapot, so I sort of warred with that a little bit. And you can see how I'm going for a blue color scheme. So then I decided lemons were a better color scheme. I was still warring with the shortness of the teapot. I thought it just kind of didn't look like how it looked. It didn't look balanced. I was going for balance. So then I played around with the lighting. You can't really paint something with shadows if you can't see them. So the way that I achieve my lighting is by taking the lampshade off of a lamp, as you can see. You guys can do that in your house too. Just get permission from your parents. So that's how I get such great shadows and lighting on my subject. And then I decided I like this vase a little bit better because it's taller, so that feels a little bit more balanced to me. But it still felt like something was missing, so I went to the store and I got flowers. And then eventually I ended up taking out one teacup and one lemon because when I got my canvas, it just didn't really fit. So that's kind of how I picked my subject. So I have my setup. Here's my subject. I did a rough sketch that looks like this. Now you can see how I didn't really go into super great detail. You can see where I messed up. I made my teacup a little bit too small. You can see how I just basically did lines because your sketch when you're going to do a painting is not that important. When you add the paint is when it starts to actually mean something. So you don't want to exhaust yourself with this really detailed sketch and then realize that it's off or lose time that you could be spending on your painting because your painting is what matters. So what I'm going to do is I have for myself right here a palette, a wood palette with wax paper. That's just a trick that I learned in college so you don't have any cleanup. And please, 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 please check with your parents before you choose a place to paint. Make sure that you have newspaper down and make sure that you are not using or painting on your mom's very nice mahogany table. Check with your parents before you paint. I remember my first art studio was a card table next to the dog cage, so humble beginnings. But let's get started. Okay, so the colors that I chose to mix, I have the turquoise and dark turquoise for the teacup. I think I matched it pretty well, and I just made that using a basic blue and some yellow until I got kind of the right color. When you're mixing colors, make sure you start small. You don't want to pour a giant, like, teaspoon size of a color, start to mix it, and realize that you have wasted all this paint because it's the wrong color. So start with tiny little, like, teaspoon size dollops of paint, and then you can always add to it once you feel like you're getting the right color. So there's my turquoise. I have some yellow if I want to make it a little bit more greenish. I've got the light yellow that I haven't exactly mixed yet. Do you see how little? Alright, just to give you a little like size comparison. Here's my pencil. So you can see I've only used a tiny bit of yellow and white to make that color because I don't want to waste my paint. And the paint that you guys got in your kits, there's not a whole lot there to begin with. Then, so if you look at my subject here, you can see that the background's like this white color, but I'm the artist, so I can do whatever I want, and I'm going to choose to paint the background like a deep blue. I think that'll go really well with my painting. So I made this deep blue right here, and that's for the painting. I have a green here for the backs of the flowers, And now you might say, Miss Lucas, why do you have purple on your palette? There's no purple in the picture. Well, I have this yellow that I squirted out. That's like a lemon yellow. Do you see how that's kind of closer to a lemon yellow than this sunny yellow I have? See the difference right next to each other? So this purple is the complement. Remember in your online school when you learned about complementary colors? Well, yellow's complement is purple. So if you want to make yellow darker or less bright or a little bit duller, you just add tiny bits of purple. So that's why I have purple there. I also have a, I mixed a, right here, like a off-white, because my vase there isn't stark white, it's off-white. So that's why I mixed that color. But I'm just going to have at it, and I'm going to speed up the video and you'll see how I'm painting as I go. Right now it's just color blocking. You can see how I'm just sort of painting large sections, just your basic color. Now what you want to paint it is your mid-tone. You don't want to worry about every single little gradient of color right now. You're just getting paint on the canvas. So you can see where, like, for instance, the teacup, it's not really detailed. I didn't spend a million years on my teacup. I'm just painting it the basic, general, middle color, and then I'm maybe adding some shadow, but just briefly, kind of like a map. Think of this like sort of like you're starting with it out of focus. It's like your image is blurry, and then as you progress through your painting, the details are going to get sharper and sharper, and they're going to get more clear and more distinct. So right now, like, look at my lemon. My lemon is really blending in with what's behind it. But as you can see in what I'm actually painting, there's going to be a big shadow and there's going to be a big highlight, which is going to make it look real. So the one thing I really wanted to show you right now is how to blend the color. So I just painted this gray color. It's still wet. I want to blend it. You see how the colors blend right here in my vase? I want to blend the dark color with this lighter color that's right next to it. So what I want to do is get the lighter color, and I'm going to paint right into it. So they're both wet. This is called the wet and wet blending technique. And you can see how you can't see the line between the two colors after I've been blending it. So now I look at my vase again, it gets even lighter. So what I'm doing is, here's the dark color that I mixed. I did that by taking this off-white color and adding a little bit of black, which is right here. And then I made the next step up, the next color, by took the gray and added just a little bit more of the off-white again. So what I'm going to do to make my next color is I'm going to add a little bit more of the off-white.
Alright, you can see here how I'm using shadows to create depth. So just like I wanted you to, you should start off with like your mid-tone, or just block coloring, as I called it in the video. But then as you get more and more complex, you're going to add more and more blocks. So you can see that this like shadowy tan color that I'm adding around my lemon.
Right, another technique.
Just after I did that, you can see how now the lemon looks like it has depth. It looks like it has,
so basically, I have a couple strokes.
it looks like it's on an actual table. And you can do that just by adding like some contrast and some shadows.
What I'm going to do is take a dry brush.
I'm sorry, I know this is really fast. This is speeded it up 750%, so I really don't paint this fast. But alright, you can see, and now I'm adding more of the
chose to do this because the shadow
sunflower
wasn't dark enough, so I just made it a little bit darker by adding
remember when I hit the pause button on the background because I didn't want my yellow to be blue tinted when I painted it. But I think I'm about to finish the background. Here's the middle of the main sunflower. Adding some depth, adding some shadows. A lot of times, alright, so a lot of you guys are perfectionists, and I appreciate that and I love that. But you can see how when I did the middle of this flower, I kind of left it alone. I realized that with the different seeds and things that are inside of the middle of the sunflower, it's really detailed, and I just sort of stopped. I realized that it was going to take a lot of work and I would really have to concentrate on the middle of the sunflower, so I'm about to leave it and come back to it at the very end. That's okay. This is around the point where I think I realized that the shades in the petals of the sunflowers is relative to the same color of the middle. So you can see me just sort of creating lines to shade the petals. Now I really love to paint flowers. I've painted flowers on multiple occasions, but and usually I get very detailed, but I chose not to get too detailed with this one. I didn't want to get too crazy shading every petal and worrying about the way the light's pouring in on every single detail. So you can see how I just sort of made some lines, added some shadows, and then moved on. Now I sort of jump around when I paint. Not all artists do, but I think it's a really good just a technique. Jump around and then return to something when you feel a little bit more ready to tackle it. But again, you know, the first object is sort of getting color on the canvas. And here I am finishing my background, again with depth. So I'm not just going to sit here and paint my background a solid color. I'm still shading it. I'm still shading it where my source of light's coming from. So you'll notice on the right hand side it's going to get lighter, and it's going to be darker on the left. I'm adding the lighter color over here. If I just painted this a really basic flat color, then it would look silly because I've got shadows happening on my subject, on the teacup, on the vase, on the flowers, and if I were just to paint the background with no shadow. So you can see I have it almost filled in. Some of you might think that brushes are hard to control, but if you look in your kit, you have flat brushes and you have shorter brushes. Play around with your brushes to see which ones are easier to control. You can see up there how I just filled in the spacer on the sunflowers. You need a really good brush for that. And also, you're using acrylic paint too, and acrylic paint's really fast drying. So I don't know if you can tell, but I left sort of a white space in between where I finished the yellow part of the flower and where the blue starts. So there I am adding some highlights to the teacup, which is making it look more realistic. And you can see where I left it until now. And I think I sort of decided to leave this teacup a little bit rough looking, like just let the highlights sort of stand out without really blending them a whole lot, because I just kind of liked how it looked. I don't normally do that, but this time I did. And you can see me doing the wet and wet and the dry brush method to blend in some of the colors. And my teacup looks a lot more real than it did a few minutes ago. And I think I added a tea bag, so there's the little string. That's what I'm doing right now. I think I wanted to add the word tea, and I did it right here, but then I decided to erase it and do it later because it didn't look great. It was, I think the black that I chose for the letters was a little bit too dark. There you go. And then I decided I don't like it. Art's a lot of trial and error. There you go. See, I erased it. Adding more depth, adding more shadows. So you see I already did that shadow around the lemon, and this time I'm adding even a darker shadow a little bit closer because it's sort of like a gradual thing. So I've added another color which is going to make it look even more realistic because it's going to be even more of a different step. I haven't even begun to shade my lemon or really my vase a whole lot. There you see me filling in around the petals with the blue because it's dry now. And I think I'm about to start shading the yellow in the back petals. Yep, there you go. Looks pretty good. I'm liking it. More shadows on the petals. Now this is getting to a point where if I really wanted to, I could end it soon. I could stop my painting whenever I wanted to, but I kind of like to keep going until I really think that I can't add any more detail. So I did notice halfway through this that there's a shadow, there's like a reflection of the lemon on the glass vase, so I'm going to try to include that. I'm also adding more and more detail to my petals. But so far, I get to a point where I really end up liking it. So then I want to keep working on it until I make it perfect. Kind of like a motivation trick I do. Every once in a while, I mean, you can be frustrated with your painting the entire time, but every once in a while you'll do something that you really, really like, and then that keeps you going for the rest of the entire painting. I think that for me that was the teacup. Once I painted the teacup, I felt really satisfied with it, and I just wanted to keep on working on it from that point on. Until you get to that point, though, it's all about perseverance. It's looking pretty good. More detail, more detail. You can see how much I fuss. I'm sure a lot of you are like that too. You have to step back, take a look at it from across the room, take a break, take a walk, go get yourself some coffee, and then return to it and sort of evaluate how you're doing. See the corner of my face there. you're about to see the last finishing touches. Okay, so I stopped the camera for a little bit. I went and I put a jacket on, and then I started to add the reflection of the lemon on the glass. Do you see how I added the reflection of the lemon on the glass? And I did that the same dry brush technique that I showed you before. So I grabbed the yellow, I mixed a little bit of gray in it and until it looked about right, and then I dry brush blended it into my vase until I liked it. I'm adding a little bit more shadow on the petals, and then I think I'm about done. Always make sure you sign it. I think I keep fussing with the petals because I wanted them to be a little bit more detailed, but this is only a 12 by 12, so it's only a foot by a foot canvas. I usually work a lot bigger, so it may seem intimidating to work on a bigger canvas, and you definitely use more paint, but you don't have to labor so much over the details, because if you have a bigger picture, then you don't have to get as tinier brushes to do the details. And I'm used to working with a much bigger canvas, so I think that's why I was a little bit frustrated. This time I wrote T in blue, so it sort of fits with my color scheme and doesn't look too stark like the black did when I had to erase it before. Adding a few more highlights and shadows. And I'm pretty sure I declared done. If you see long pauses, that's because I'm taking a second to look at it before I do anything else. There's a really cool petal that I tried to get. Oh no, that's a leaf, I'm sorry. I was really trying to emphasize this leaf that was sticking out. Sometimes you'll see my my cell phone in the corner. I take pictures with my phone sometimes, because sometimes when you're upright in the painting, it gets a little bit too close. And then if you take a picture of it and you look at it on your phone or something in a picture, it will look completely different. So sometimes I do that to just kind of get a final say-so on it. But yep, I signed it, so now I'm officially done. And with a few more details, then I think I'm going to be completely finished. Ta-da! Just to sort of recap, here's my basic sketch. You can see the outline of the flower, you can see the teacup, you can see the tray that I was painting from before I added any color whatsoever onto my canvas. And then here you see it sort of like midway. That's in the middle of my color blocking. That's before I added the background all the way. That's when I was showing you how to blend. So you can see how I just used basic colors there, basic flat colors, before I started to shade and add highlights. And then the next picture is after I've added color everywhere. You can see this extra space on the outside of the petals. You can see how I definitely have more shadow. I added the shadow around the bottom of the vase and the lemon, but it's still not really detailed yet until here, where you can see I got a little bit more detailed. I've got lines on my petals, I have the tea bag there, but there's no highlight in the vase yet from the lemon until this picture. This is actually, I just took this picture as a kind of to show you how my setup is. You can see there's the webcam on the corner of my computer and my paints and the subject. Here's the finished project, I think. You can see how I have the highlight on the lemon. I've signed it. I put the letters on the tea bag tag. And there's a little bit closer here. Finished project. Pretty exciting. I can't wait to see yours. Alright guys, go out, make a great painting. If this is the project that you chose. If you have any questions about your subject, about where to start, I have office hours every day. I have studio hours. Please, please, please come. Bring me your questions, bring me your subjects, bring me your started painting, bring me your finished painting. I'm here to help you along this process of this project. So I look forward to seeing what all of you come up with, and I'm really, really excited for you to start.